Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex here on the south side of Pittsburgh. It is the Tomlin Tuesday. Bob Pompiani, Bob Labriola from Steelers Digest. We've got the Bob and Bob show here today as we get you set for Mike Tomlin and what should be a very interesting press conference ahead of the biggest game of the year, if you're going to think of it from where they are, where they got to go. It's AFC North Division head-to-head games. And Bob, this week at Cincinnati. Before we talk about that, let's talk about what could have been. It was a remarkable comeback, a furious comeback by the Steelers. Started with a special teams play by Miles Killebrew. 27 points in the fourth quarter. I mean, that was a crazy fourth quarter, and they were there in position to win it. Unfortunately, at the end, the defense couldn't hold Justin Herbert out.
Yeah, when you're looking at what kind of keyed the comeback, from except for the offense, which you just mentioned. You mentioned the blocked punt. There was the Cam Hayward play where he batted the ball in the air. Cam Sutton made the diving interception. And then the Joe Schobert stoning Austin Eckler on 4th and short.
Yes.
There. I thought that the defense was going to need one more stop. Justin Herbert and that offense, the way it looked in the first half, I mean, it was, the Chargers had 5 possessions in the first half and scored on every one of them. So it was obvious, at least to me at that point, that the defense was really going to have to buckle down a little bit more and maybe get a little lucky too, in terms of coming up with a play or a takeaway or something. And miscommunication in the back end. No Minkah Fitzpatrick. That's what happens sometimes.
And a lot of people talk about Minkah Fitzpatrick, maybe the lack of interceptions or lack of those, quote, splash plays, but he is a solidifier back there, too. He covers up a lot for, and Trey Norwood's a rookie. There are a lot of rookies playing in key positions in this game, and they were very shorthanded defensively in that game, and it does have an impact. There's no question.
Right. I mean, we haven't seen a lot of what we saw on that Mike Williams 53-yard touchdown play either, with Minkah back there. You haven't seen a lot of guys running free down the sideline in critical situations. It seemed on the replay to me anyway that a couple of defensive players jumped on the one, looked like a little bit of an underneath route, maybe right at the first down marker, and that just, it doesn't take, a second maybe in real time for a guy like Mike Williams to break free, for a guy like Justin Herbert to see that he's free, and then, the next thing you know, you're lining up for the extra point.
Yeah, it was sudden. It was 3 plays. It was 75 yards, and boom, all that work that had gone into a comeback of that magnitude was erased with that one big play of 53 yards. We will take a break. Mike Tomlin, we're getting set up for the coach. You're going to hear what he has to say as we continue right here on Pittsburgh CW and all the Steeler media and digital platforms.
The terrible towel is twirling, and this atmosphere is very special. It always is for a Steelers game at Heinz
Field. In all seriousness, I mean, it won't be cold this weekend, but will there be a real adjustment for you, body-wise, playing-wise as a running back, later this season, playing here in Pittsburgh in the cold and the other divisional spots?
No, sir. No.
Okay.
Guys, what are some of the things that you guys keyed in? You got a lot of yards last week, but you guys had some stalls in the red zone. What are some of the things that you guys looked on the film this week to improve?
Improving the red zone?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just run the ball, I guess. I guess that fixes a lot of things.
You popped up on an injury report last week with a foot issues. First time you've been on.
I don't know why I was on there.
So you felt fine?
Yeah.
Has it been, you've reached the halfway point of the season, has there been anything about the league, everything's new every week for you, but has there anything surprised you that you weren't expecting in the league, that you're like, wow, I wasn't seeing that coming?
Anything that surprised me so far?
Yeah, about
no.
just on the field.
No, sir, nothing surprised me so far. It's what I expected.
What's it been like having a game with Mason? How is he different? What are your thoughts with him again?
How's the difference between Ben and Mason?
Yeah.
I mean, shoot, I don't really know. I guess he's younger. His age, I guess, right? That's it, really.
When you say being better in the red zone, maybe just running the ball more, I mean, obviously that's not really your call or the player's call, but do you go to Mike or Matt and say, hey, like, even if they're stacking the box, like, I feel like I can, take the ball and still get to where I need to be?
I mean, like you said, like, it's not my decision at the end of the day. But I mean, like, I'll give, I'll say a little bit of stuff ahead. Like, even if they stack the box, we can get at least chop down like 2 or 3 yards, and then, it could be a shorter second, third down. But, at the end of the day, it's not my decision. So.
All right, welcome back live as we continue right here at Rooney Sports Complex. Bob Pompiani, Bob Labriola. We're getting set for a game with the Cincinnati Bengals after a tough loss for the Steelers. They fought back, but they fell short against the Chargers. Leaves them at 5-4-1. Cincinnati is 6-4. It's on the road this week. Mike Tomlin is set to address the media. So let's take you to Mike Tomlin's press conference live right here.
Good afternoon. Man, really excited as I sit here today. This is a big week for us. And I think that's one of the approaches that we're going to take this week. We're not going to play it cool and pretend like it's not or downplay it, man. This is significant AFC North football for us. Very similar to the circumstances that we were in a couple of weeks ago when we were readying ourselves to go to Cleveland. These games are big. They are. You're not going to backdoor your way into the single elimination tournament. You're not going to backdoor your way into division significance. You got to go on the road and win games in this division. And that's just the reality of it. The sugar on top is obviously early in the season they were able to come in to our place and win. So it's a big game for us. It's a big game for them. There's positioning relative to it. And so we're not going to play it cool. We're not going to pretend like it's not. What we're going to do is we're going to acknowledge that, and then we got to be at our best. We got to put together a good plan. We got to divide the labor up appropriately to highlight the strengths of our collective. We got to work to minimize some of our individual weaknesses, and thus get out of the stadium with the desired result. And so that is going to be our focus as we prepare this week. Before I get into all of that and things relative to Cincinnati, I'll summarize the last performance like I always do. Like I mentioned after the game, I'm really appreciative of the effort and the spirit in which our guys play and fight. But at the same time, I acknowledge and they acknowledge that it is required and expected. There's no way that you're going to be the type of team that we desire to be in the single elimination tournament, for instance, or be division dominant, for instance, without playing with that spirit. And so I acknowledge that it's appreciated, but I also acknowledge that it is required. We came up short in the game. Like I also mentioned after the game, I take responsibility for that. Looking back at it, I felt that way instantly after the game, and I still feel that way with the configuration of people that we had available to us on defense. We probably should have done some things differently, more out of our personality, to be quite honest with you. Drawing inside the lines when you got significant people missing kind of at every level, we weren't able to be as good as we desired to be and win those moments versus a well-balanced group like that. We weren't good enough to keep the quarterback in the pocket with our four-man rush. Under normal circumstances, our four-man rush probably is good enough to keep quarterbacks in the pocket. Buffalo, for example. It was not good enough in those circumstances with some of the people that we were missing. Not only Watt, but Loudermilk has given us good quality reps in recent weeks, and so I thought that was a factor in the game. We were less aggressive in maybe some of our blitz game. We felt like we needed 7 people in coverage, and so we didn't get after them as much as we would like. Some of those things. It was just it was one of those games. It was something to learn from, particularly from a coach's perspective, and we will. But again, I appreciate the efforts, not only of the larger body, but just the number of guys that had an opportunity to get elevated opportunities and put their hand in the pile. Regardless of their performance, man, they're going to be better for having that in-stadium experience, and we're going to be better for them having that in-stadium experience. I'm talking about guys like Carl Joseph, who we elevated and played in the game. Trey Norwood started and played every down at safety. Delonte Scott had an opportunity to play outside linebacker for us. Derek played some outside linebacker for us. Dan played some D-line for us through elevation. And so they had an opportunity to elevate and take a significant step in their careers and contribute and play and game in-stadium experience. That helps them. That also helps us. Offensively, the story of the game, I thought, was just Ben's ability to deliver on little preparation. But like I also mentioned, it's appreciated, but also expected. I think it's just one of the positive consequences of his experience. Like I outlined during the course of the week leading up to the game, because of our shared experiences, I was extremely comfortable with his ability to perform and really kind of anticipated it. But it doesn't mean that it's no less appreciated. He gave us a chance to win. We maintained possession of the ball. I think that's the thing that really concerns you when a guy misses a significant amount of practice time, just, ball security in a lot of ways. We did a good job of maintaining possession of the ball, and I think that allowed us to ring the scoreboard up and be in play. Big-time play by our block unit to kind of get us back in position. That group has been one of the better units, not only in 2021, but just in recent years in terms of the ability to block kicks and get after kicks, be it punts or extra point or field goal attempts, and we're going to need it moving forward. I thought we did some better things in the kickoff return game from a field positioning standpoint, and we needed to, and we did, and I thought that aided us some from a field position standpoint in the game. Lessons to be learned. It aches, it hurts, it should. It's ball, it's November, it's what we do. It was an AFC road opportunity. We missed out on it, but such is life. We get singularly focused on this next opportunity, AFC North road opportunity, so it's a little bit more sugar on this one, and excited about it. Like I mentioned in my opening. Talking about these guys, spending some time talking about them before I open it up. Defensively, I think one of the most significant things about them defensively is the level of cohesion that they've had. There's been very little time missed by their personnel since the last time we played them. I think Jesse Bates has missed a game. Other than that, they've had that group on the field, and they're gaining cohesion, and I think they're playing better because of it. The edge players are heating up. Trey is really lighting things up, man. He's been on fire in the last 4 or 5 weeks. Coming off the defense's right, the offense's left. Dan Moore is going to have an all-day job trying to minimize his impact on the game, but that's why they acquired him and paid him what they paid him when they acquired him in free agency via the New Orleans Saints. And so he and Hubbard are both providing quality edge play. He's been significantly hot of late. Really like the play of Logan Wilson, the consistency of his play, and he's an all-down circumstance linebacker for him. Young guy who's gaining experience, and you see that in his play. He's very ball-aware. He's gotten some turnovers for him. He was responsible for 2 the last time we played him. Those 2 turnovers turned into 14 points, and quite frankly, was the difference in the football game, and that's why I mentioned possession of the ball or ball security when I was talking about things that we need to be focused on as we prepare. He's been a catalyst of that. Can't say enough about the safety tandem. Really respect those guys. Jesse Bates obviously being the center fielder and traffic cop and ball getter and range guy. Playing really good defense. Know a lot about Mike Hilton, obviously. Mike's doing what Mike does, man. He makes it extremely difficult to play perimeter football. He destroys wide receiver screens and jets and things of that nature. His blitz game is excellent. His inside coverage is excellent on slot receivers and so forth. But that's why they went out and acquired him. And so we got a big challenge on that side of the ball in terms of dealing with those guys. On the offensive side of the ball, Joe Burrow, Chase, Higgins, Boyd, those guys, CJ at tight end, they're a challenge, but we better not underestimate Joe Mixon and his impact. And so I'll start with Joe in their run game. In particular, not only Joe in their run game, which needs no endorsement from me, he and they have been really consistent and good, not only this year but for a number of years. But, in our current state and some of the things that we've given up via the run in recent weeks, albeit quarterback scramble or what have you, it is deserving of attention for us. And so we got to work to formulate a good plan to position our people to not allow him to control the game. He's capable of that. They're capable of that. I thought he did, particularly as the game wore on last week in Vegas for them. It got them going in the right direction again, coming off of a couple of game slide. I thought he was a significant component of that. We'd be naive if we don't think he's going to continue to be a significant central component of what they do in terms of allowing them to possess the ball and being a tough nut to crack. It's easier to get behind people and allow one to do the things that he does when Joe Mixon is rolling. And so got a lot of respect for him and what they're capable of doing there. We've got to keep a lid on it with the eligibles that I mentioned and Joe Burrow and the things that he's able to do and the continuity that they're gaining and the way that they're dividing the labor up. When you watch them, you can tell they're developing a real understanding of who they are and how they divide the labor up and what they ask people to do. Combat catch guy in Higgins, chain mover, particularly inside and Boyd and down the field, so forth with Chase. And so they're familiar with us. We're familiar with them. That's one of the things that makes divisional play awesome. So I'm not telling you anything earth-shattering here. They could say similar things about us in terms of their knowledge of who we are. That's what makes these games exciting. It doesn't make them any more predictable, man. That's why you play them. We got to go into the stadium. We got to be on the details. We got to be at our best, anticipating and assuming that they will be. And again, like I mentioned, there's a lot at stake. From an injury standpoint, we had two guys that went down in the game that required further evaluation. They're still in the process of being evaluated. That is Ebron and JC. I don't have a detailed update on them as I sit here, but I would characterize their availability as questionable, at the least at this point. I'll have more information to be displayed through practice participation as we go through the week. Guys that we have a level of anticipation for return are Minka and TJ and Joe Hayden and Loudermilk. And so obviously we could utilize assistance of those guys. We'll let their first availability happen, and then the quality of their practice and prep and things relative to their return be a consideration of how much you see them and things of that nature. I'll pause and open it up for questions.
Like, to your point about their run-pass balance that they have on offense, your defense has done a good job throughout most of the year when it's healthy at identifying the other team's most prominent weapon and minimizing the impact. How do you approach that this week when they are so balanced, run versus pass, and the eligible weapons that they have?
Those are decisions that we'll make in game prep. We meet as a defensive staff this afternoon and kind of lay the beginnings of that, if you will. And that's our normal process. But that's not anything earth-shattering from my perspective. I think part of being a good defense or playing good defense is eliminating known problems and trying to minimize them, particularly situationally. And so, that's why I acknowledge Joe and what he's able to do for him, because it's real.
Mike, how much, if at all, do you get involved in the offense on game day, in-game? Or are you too concerned with defense and global issues?
Highly. Whatever unit's on the field, I'm highly involved in and responsible for.
Do you suggest plays?
Certainly. I do more than suggest, just to be clear, at times.
Hey, Mike, how would you characterize the play of Devin Bush to this?
Back from the injuries and things that he has. He was the Ed Block Courage Award winner for his ability to come back. You look at some of the injuries, similar injuries that are going on around the league, guys that are in similar circumstances, they're participating much less. Unfortunately, I saw Bud Dupree, for instance, was placed on IR last week, and Saquon Barkley and others. Zach Banner on our team is still working his way back. So we want more from him. He wants more from himself, but we are appreciative that he's put himself in position to be available and is playing as much as he is and is having the level of consistent availability and production that he is.
Mike, how do you patch together the defense when you have four guys who really never played any snaps, and you talk about playing out of your, maybe changing your personality? How do you balance that and do that on a short week?
I didn't do it very well last week, and hopefully that won't be the challenge of this week as we prepare. As I mentioned, a lot of those guys will be back to us.
Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow were so successful early, especially deep. The last few weeks, though, they haven't connected at all. Is there a key there? Is there something that's sort of really working to shut that down?
Plays on tape. If you remember a year ago, for example, Chase Claypool in the first 5 or 6 weeks, man, was just ringing up big play after big play. You get plays on tape, people recognize your talents. They make necessary adjustments and efforts to minimize their talents. Everyone's professional. It's a component of the game. It seems like every year there's a young, talented wideout that kind of takes the league by storm in September. And that's not downplaying any of the significance of what Chase has done. It just happens every year. People have to, like, okay, that speed is real. You get a couple of those plays on tape. Same could be said, about Claypool a year ago. I go so far back as, Mike Wallace when he was young, Martavis Bryant when he was young, when we first started playing him. I know it was a significant number of games where he was inactive, but remember when we started playing him, man, he was behind people every week. I just think that when you don't have a reputation, an on-tape or on-field reputation, you earn that with plays, and he's earned that with plays, and he's earned the respect, and they've earned the respect of people that are preparing for him, that they're making a concerted effort to minimize some of that. But it still creates opportunity for the collective, because I imagine that, Joe Mixon is benefiting from some of the attention that tandem is earning.
Yeah, Mike, you mentioned Loudermilk earlier. What has he given you so far, and was he ready to take on maybe a bigger role until he got hurt?
He was, and he was in the process of doing so. If you look at his participation, I think it was consistently going up until he got hurt at practice the other day. He's growing in all areas. He's growing versus the run. He's growing versus the pass. His production is revealing that in all areas as well. He's applying pressure to the quarterback. He's stacking the point. He's a guy that's on the upswing. And so hopefully he can continue that when he gets back to us.
Mike, you briefly referenced some of the quarterback scramble issues that you saw against the Chargers. Was that also the residue of what you were talking about with the defensive plan going into the Charger game, or is that just more unique to circumstances that took place post-snap?
It's plan, it's play, it's all of the above. We weren't good enough to keep him in the pocket with a four-man rush. In most instances, we weren't last Sunday, and so it's my job to recognize that and make alternate plans. The issues were that we had some young, inexperienced guys in the secondary, and so if you're rushing them with more than 4, you're exposing them. And how well balanced their attack was made that difficult for us. We needed to play Canadian football, man. We needed 12. We needed 7 in coverage plus a 5-man rush, but you don't get that south of the border.
Mike, what was working so well for your offense in the fourth quarter? Maybe that hasn't been to that level this season so far.
I don't know that anything specifically was working. We were working at pace because we were down multiple scores. We got put on a short field a couple of times because the defense got a turnover and we blocked a kick. And so I don't know that anything changed, to be honest with you. You can look at points and see 27 points and think that something dramatically changed offensively, but I just outlined 14 of them for you. We got a turnover and put them on the short field on defense. We got put on extreme short field with the punt block. And we worked at pace because we were down multiple scores.
Yeah, Mike, I know you're never going to make a quote-unquote excuse, but when you're missing a lot of key players, is it more like an explanation as opposed to an excuse?
It's irrelevant. We didn't win. We got a big game this week.
Mike, I know you don't have to throw any more bouquets at Cam, but when you see the way he plays in the fourth quarter, when you see him running 40 yards down the field to tackle the quarterback, what effect does that have on the other players?
you know, like I mentioned in some other instances, it is appreciated, but it's been so consistent over the decade plus that he's been here that it's also expected. It's on and it's off the field. You know, he handed out turkeys already. He's a multiple-time, Walter Payton Man of the Year candidate for us. And so, man, this guy checks all the boxes, man. He is a blueprint for young and developing players on the field and off, guys like Loudermilk. He's a walking, talking, breathing example of how to do it. And so we're appreciative of that.
Mike, in the Lions game, you guys had a red zone possession where Najee Harris didn't get the ball through, I think, 3 pass attempts, and then in this past game there was eventually Najee got the touchdown, but leading into it there were, I think, 2 passes and a jet sweep to Claypool. Is there any emphasis to get Najee the ball more in goal-to-go situations, or is that just still situational, just what you guys see?
We're not freezing him out in any circumstance. He's an all situations player for us. His play in the tape illustrates that. The 2 instances that you mentioned were unsuccessful goal line ventures for us. If we hit wide open Ray McLeod, you're not asking me that question. If we score on that last possession, you're not from the other week, you're not asking me that question. And so we're not overly concerned about the questioning. We're focused on being successful, and that'll make some of the questions stop.
Yeah, Mike. B.J. Finney had some back issues earlier in the year. Is he fully able to contribute?
Yes, he is.
You've gone with Haig before. Was any rationale behind that?
Man, Joe is very versatile. Has played a lot, has started a lot, as has B.J. We got tough decisions to make at times when we decide who we go to. We don't run away from those decisions. We run to them. We're appreciative of the fact that we got multiple guys to choose from in those circumstances.
You're speaking so highly of Joe Mixon. When you look at your own run defense, what are sort of the 3 things that are really plaguing you right now, and how fixable are they? How do you fix them?
I don't know that there are 3 things. We just got to play better, and we will. I'm excited about getting ready to prepare to play this week and ultimately step into the stadium.
Mike, you also didn't run late when Najee was injured. Does his inability to play at that point factor into that decision?
Game circumstances had probably a lot to do with that. We were down.
No, it was 34-34 when you got the ball back with 3:43 left.
Yeah, but that's a small sample size, so I'd hate to paint with a broad brush on a collection of 3 plays? That was a 3-play possession.
You told us earlier that you're absolutely willing to step in offensively when necessary.
Not only offensively, but defensively and special teams wise, certainly.
So Sunday, when you got an extra set of downs at the goal line and you put in a fullback and you just ran up the gut, was that you?
I won't peel back the curtain and talk about the division of labor, man. I'm ultimately responsible for everything that we do, while at the same time I want to give credit to all parties involved, coaches and players. We're a collective.
Mike, what did you see out of Cam Sutton, not just as a cornerback player specifically, but also maybe as a leader at points? Because it seemed like there was some times when you guys were down where he made a big tackle and he was trying to fire up the team. Then, of course, he had the interception.
Cam did what was appropriate. We appreciate it, but it was expected. You look around and you're Cam and you're the senior member of the group. He was without Joe Hayden. He was without Minka. And so that's what we expect mature professionals to do, man, to close ranks and to provide alternate leadership and playmaking. And he did it, and we're appreciative of it.
One final one. All right, Coach.
Thanks, guys.
All right, that's Mike Tomlin after the press conference, and we're here now to talk about it up until 1 o'clock. And we do so with Bob Labriola, who does a great job with Steelers Digest. And one of the things a lot of people want to talk about was Devin Bush, who's really struggled. And obviously coming off ACL surgery, Mike Tomlin indicated that still could be part of the explanation. But he also said he needed more out of him. And I think he needs more out of a lot of guys on the inside part of the defense.
Absolutely. And I think it starts with the defensive line, too. Mm-hmm. We focus on the inside linebackers. And, yeah, absolutely. Based on the talent that they have there, they probably should be contributing more, but the defensive line is part of that as well.
Yeah, we'll break that down. We'll talk about some of Tomlin takes that were more interesting today, including one that included a south of the border description, which is interesting. A geography lesson. That's coming up as we continue. We're live right here, and thank you to all the viewers on Pittsburgh CW in Pittsburgh and all the Steeler viewers and listeners on the digital platforms. We'll be back to talk about Mike Tomlin's takes right after this.
What did you see on that play where you tipped the ball that led to Sutton's interception?
They went empty. Main thing for us, we knew the ball was coming out quick. Get your hands up. I think Bugs had gotten a couple tips early on. Just try to get my hand in the passing lane, and then Cam Sutton made a heck of a play. Caught it and gave the offense a short field.
What was Herbert doing that allowed him to be so effective, especially running for a couple full big reps?
I think he identified what we were in early on, and then, as soon as he saw a lane, he was sprinting out of it. We got to clean that up today. Obviously it wasn't what we need to be in, and, we gave up a bunch of yards, and we paid the price.
Looking back at this past week, what made preparing for Justin Herbert kind of so challenging?
His arm and his legs. He's a really strong quarterback who can throw the ball all over the field. There wasn't a pass that didn't look like it should have been caught because that dude throws it on the money. And then, when he sees open lanes, because, you're worried about the pass, he knows how to, make a defense back.
Cam, what happened at the end of the long run down inside?
Man, to be honest, I was running after the ball, and I caught my hand under. And so when I was trying to get up, I couldn't get up, and I fell back on him. I know it looks terrible. There was nothing malicious behind it. I don't think I was trying to punch him, but I know it looks more worse than it is in slow motion. But I'm sorry if I did anything to offend anybody. I wish I had said more to Justin after, but there was nothing behind it.
The Steelers Pro Shop at Heinz Field has everything you need to show off your Steelers pride. Experience a shopping environment unlike any other. From custom jerseys to terrible towels, sideline gear, and more. There's something black and gold for every fan. Get your Steelers gear directly from the team this year. Visit shop.steelers.com for more information.
Guys at level of anticipation for return are Minka and TJ and Joe Hayden and Loudermilk. And so obviously we could utilize the assistance of those guys. We'll let their first availability happen, and then the quality of their practice and prep and things relative to their return be a consideration of how much you see them and things of that nature.
So that's certainly good news early in the week as the Steelers get ready for preparation for the Cincinnati Bengals. There were some other injuries. Eric Ebron, J.C. Hassenauer, both at this point questionable, as Mike Tomlin phrased it. But, boy, when you miss, caliber of players as Joe Hayden, who's been a Pro Bowler, Minka Fitzpatrick, and T.J. Watt, all three at the same time, and that's never happened. And you saw the result of what they couldn't do defensively. And even though Mike Tomlin said maybe he needed to go back and change the way they strategically planned for that game, the bottom line is you're very handicapped.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at Minka Fitzpatrick and T.J. Watt. Both of them are first-team All-Pros. Okay, the All-Pro team is 22 people they picked. So you're talking about two of the most significant defensive players in the entire NFL. You take one from the second level of your defense and the back end of your defense off the field against an offense like the Chargers, quarterbacked by a guy like Justin Herbert, I mean, that's really putting yourself behind the 8 ball.
Yeah, and Austin Eckler obviously had a big game against the Steelers on Sunday night with 4 touchdowns. And, you know, looking ahead to this week, stopping the run is still going to be a big issue here. And Joe Burrow can do some things if you give him an opportunity with his legs. But Joe Mixon has been their workhorse. And they ran the ball 38 times last week. And I think I would expect the same approach from them this week.
Yeah, Joe Mixon, you know, the AFC North, it's a lot of things. But when you look at the offenses that the Steelers have to go against in the AFC North, all of them are very capable of controlling the football with the run or making dynamic plays with the run. And so much of the Steelers' defense, you know, about creating takeaways and causing confusion and all of that stuff. If you can't stop the run, you don't get the other team into the kind of down and distance situations that allows the defense to do some of those things. And so stopping Joe Mixon is going to be a big key on Sunday.
And Joe Burrow had a couple of games that he probably would like to have back, but I mean, obviously he complements, when you get a run game like this, Bob, a guy like Burrow can be very dangerous because play action is something they use and they have guys down the field. Jamar Chase is one of them. He's emerged. You heard Mike Tomlin talk about him. This is a guy you have to really, and they had some big plays in that first game against the Steelers. One right before halftime that was a killer.
Yeah, Jamar Chase too. I remember back in the preseason, you know, everybody was talking about what a bust he was because he was dropping some passes in the preseason. Whatever that problem was, that's been gone for quite some time. And Jamar Chase, you know, when you combine a deep threat like him, a dynamic playmaker down the field with a running game like Joe Mixon provides, play action sets that up. If you know, have some players maybe sticking their nose into the backfield or peeking into the backfield looking to help against the run, before you know it, Jamar Chase is already behind you. So, you know, again, you've got to deal with the run, and those guys really complement each other and make it a long day for the opposition.
One of the things Mike Tomlin also talked about was this inability to put pressure on the quarterback last week in that Chargers game, and that's a difficult assignment if you don't get near Justin Herbert and if you're consumed with putting guys in the secondary. And he said he had to go 7. He'd like to have more than that if possible, but the rules will say no. But it makes it difficult if you don't put, all of a sudden he has lanes that you would never anticipate, and boy, did he take advantage of those lanes.
Right, and what Mike Tomlin said right after the game was, and this really was telling to me, was we couldn't cover with fewer than 7. So then you really can't blitz, and if you can't blitz and you're playing without TJ Watt and with some of the other guys that you were playing with, you know, they're trying to generate pressure. Maybe they got a little sloppy with their rush lanes. You know, keeping the pocket balanced, don't run behind the quarterback, all those things that they tell you to do. You have problems with Justin Herbert. And again, you know, next man up. After a while, I think you get too far down to the next men and you really start to feel the impact.
It's about defensive, help down the road. And in this salary cap era where you have a lot of people getting big money at the top, oftentimes there's not a lot of depth behind. That's true of all teams. But in this case, this was one of those situations where they didn't have a lot of guys who had taken snaps. When we come back, we'll talk more about that and why Justin Herbert was able to have so much available room that he took full advantage of, rushing for over 90 yards. That's when we continue right here on the Mike Tomlin press conference on Pittsburgh CW and Steeler digital platforms.
The Steelers Pro Shop at Heinz Field has everything you need to show off your Steelers pride. Experience a shopping environment unlike any other. From custom jerseys to terrible towels, sideline gear, and more. There's something black and gold for every fan. Get your Steelers gear directly from the team this year. Visit shop.steelers.com for more information.
Diontae, having been back out there tonight, it looked like you guys picked right up with your chemistry. Just what did you see from him, and how much did it help the offense to have him back out there?
Well, I seen the same thing as if he was at practice the whole week, you know, consistency. It just felt good to have him back out there and get the offense back going, you know. Not saying Mason wasn't doing his job or whatnot, but the offense was just playing well tonight, and just came up short tonight.
The way you guys came back in the fourth quarter, do you feel like maybe you pulled one out there?
Yeah, I thought we had him, but at the end of the day, it's football. Stuff gonna happen, and we didn't respond like we were supposed to. So we just gotta look forward to this week.
What's been the process that you went through to kind of build the camaraderie and chemistry with Ben Roethlisberger?
Just showing consistency, just being open and getting in the right spots where he need me to be at, and just making plays for him. And I feel like that's continuing to grow, and I'm just going to keep doing that.
Were you at all nervous about kind of just how he would be able to play physically? I mean, I know he's played after not practicing all week. He's been injured before, but COVID's a little bit different. Did you expect him to be able to perform at this level?
No, I wasn't nervous at all. I mean, it's Ben. He going to do what he do. And it's our job to go out there and make him look good at the end of the day. And we did that. Like I said, we came up short, and we just got to move on from it and learn.
You guys continued to kind of build your way back there from that deficit. What was the message like kind of after every drive when you would put up points? Was it different than anything usually?
Really, from a receiver standpoint, our group, we just put it on us because at the end of the day, we feel like we're the best receiving corps in the league. And we showed what we can do. And like I said, we just put it on us, and we continue to do that. And we just came up short, and we just got to watch film and just get ready for the next week. So we're going to be fine.
Good enough to keep with a four-man rush. In most instances, we weren't last Sunday, and so it's my job to recognize that and make alternate plans. The issues were that we had some young, inexperienced guys in the secondary, and so if you're rushing them with more than four, you're exposing them. And how well balanced their attack was made that difficult for us. We needed to play Canadian football, man. We needed 12. We needed 7 in coverage plus a 5-man rush, but you don't get that south of the border.
That was one of the more interesting sound bites that Mike Tomlin's come up with, but the point is they couldn't afford to load up on exotic blitzes for fear that you're going to leave guys who have no experience back there, and Justin Herbert can certainly find them. It is a double-edged sword when it comes to him. It also explains why he's been talking about mobile quarterbacks for the last several weeks, too.
Yeah, it might be a triple-edged sword, too, with Justin Herbert, because when you try and run man-to-man coverage, your defensive players are running with the receivers, and Justin Herbert is good enough to recognize that right away. And if you're running with receivers, that can open areas in the secondary. And a lot of times, guys running with receivers have their back turned to the passer. And that's why I think you saw some instances where it looked like Justin Herbert was almost appearing to just wait for the receivers to get out into the pattern before he took off and ran. But I think that's what was happening in those instances. The Steelers got caught in man-to-man coverage. Defensive players are running with the receivers, and Justin Herbert is good enough and smart enough to take advantage of that.
Do you think, looking back, maybe, and he indicated this, Mike Tomlin, that maybe they should have changed a little bit of what they were doing there, take more chances, given what happened?
Well, yeah, I mean, when you look at the way the game unfolded, San Diego, Los Angeles, the Chargers had 5 possessions in the first half and scored on all of them. So whatever the Steelers were trying wasn't working, and so then the natural response to that is, well, maybe we should have tried some things differently. But again, you had so much inexperience on the field at one time. I think the attempt anyway was try not to have too many of what they ended up having at the end. Right. Mike Williams running clean down the sideline because of a busted coverage.
Yeah, it came down to that one thing, a big comeback by the Steelers, and that was engineered largely by special teams play, which got some momentum going, and then Ben Roethlisberger took over without a week of practice because of COVID, flew out there. That leads us to our BetMGM by the numbers. Ben Roethlisberger at the Chargers. Boy, he does some of his best work when he has issues to deal with and he's out. And we saw that with Cincinnati last year. He came back and had a very efficient day after missing. It was a close contact to Vance McDonald. This time he actually had it. But look at that, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. If you'd said that at the beginning of the game, I think anyone would have taken that from the Steelers side of things.
Yeah, we've been talking a lot about how the special teams and the defense really helped that comeback, and they did. But let me say this, if Ben doesn't cash in each of those situations with points and touchdowns in at least a couple of those, those plays are just kind of lost in the aftermath and in the conversation. That's the thing about Ben Roethlisberger that has always impressed me. When one of the other phases of the team makes a big play, he cashes it in on the scoreboard more often than not.
And I thought there was a bad call by the officials late in the game when Diontae Johnson, they threw a flag, Bob, and then they picked it up saying it was uncatchable. I've never seen a call like that. Normally uncatchable balls are over the head of the receiver, never before the receiver. And I thought that was a total mistake by the officiating crew.
Yeah, I mean, and you're talking to the wrong guy about that. I mean, I've believed for a long time that, the NFL officiating is too arbitrary and inconsistent, and nothing we saw in the Chargers game will change my opinion. But let me just say this. It's bad for both teams usually all the time. So it's not like the officials have it in for the Steelers, as a lot of fans believe. I just don't know that the way that the system is currently set up, those guys that they have can handle the job that they're being asked to do.
And it is a fast-moving game, and a lot of things happen. And
lots of camera angles.
Yeah, and again, that's the thing that they have to deal with. There's so many camera angles. They only have so many eyes, and sometimes you're going to miss some stuff. Although some of the hits to the head on Najee Harris and Cam Sutton, I think were blatant calls, given the fact that they're trying to crack down on those kind of plays. We'll take a break, come back with more as we break down Mike Tomlin's press conference right here on Pittsburgh CW and the Steeler Digital platforms. Back after this.
The Steelers Pro Shop at Heinz Field has everything you need to show off your Steelers pride. Experience a shopping environment unlike any other. From custom jerseys to terrible towels, sideline gear, and more. There's something black and gold for every fan. Get your Steelers gear directly from the team this year. Visit shop.steelers.com for more information.
Ben, can you just go through the process of how you were able to get off the COVID list and get eligible to play?
Yeah, I mean, it's a crazy process. Testing every day, lots of vitamins and minerals. Just got to give a lot of credit to John Norwig, the rest of the staff, Elena for the testing. You're literally just taking tests and then hoping every day that it's negative. So that's kind of what it is. It's a very interesting process.
What's this last week been like for you?
Interesting, different. I think the MVP of the week is my wife, because it was not easy for all the kids to be home, me to be home, a grumpy husband that probably wants to be at football, and I just had to be the backup substitute teacher, and so we just it was a lot of interesting times, me wearing a mask at home and trying to help with homework and still trying to spend time on meetings and looking at the iPad and going over plays. And it's tough not getting practice perspectives, watching practice from behind. I know I don't always participate in practice, but at least you're there and you can and see it firsthand. It's different watching it on film at night. And so it's definitely a different process, but, we got through it.
I'm guessing one of the more wildest fourth quarters you've been a part of, all those points. Your thoughts on how that played out, and when you took the lead, did you think you were kind of in the clear?
Yeah, what a crazy game. It's kind of two halves. I think we had 3 series in the first half, 3 and 3. No punts. We kept the punter on the sideline, which is always good for an offense. And then we block a punt, we score. Defense gets a turnover, and just a bizarre sequence of events. And obviously we'd like to finish the game off. We'd like to stay on the field, score a touchdown. There was they called a pass interference or a holding, and then they picked it up for uncatchable.
Whatever unit's on the field, I'm highly involved and responsible for.
Do you suggest?
Certainly. I do more than suggest. Just to be clear, at times.
I do more than suggest. He is the head coach. He has control over all of it, although he does let his guys do his thing. And I think sometimes you can get a little too cute around the goal line, and maybe that's what that was responsible for, because at the end of the first time that failed, and the PI kind of bailed them out, then they send in the heavy hitters with Derek Watt back there, Zach Banner, and it results in a Najee Harris touchdown.
Yeah, Mike Tomlin he was asked specifically if he called that play, and he wouldn't say whether he did or not. But, based on the difference, in the personnel grouping, and everything, I mean, it seems to me that one came right out of his headset.
And when you have a guy like Harris, that's one of the things I've been talking about a lot. He can fly through the air. He can make up yards in the air, not necessarily on the ground. But you want to take advantage of that. And I think that was the whole idea of drafting him in the first round and trying to load up on a run game that was not good last year.
Yeah, I mean, Najee Harris, and as you mentioned, he can go over the pile. He can run through people. He also has the ability, if the play presents itself in a certain way, where he can see what's going on in front of him and bounce outside. He has the speed to do that as well. I mean, he is an all downs, all situations running back. And, like a lot of fans, I would like to see him utilized more down at that end of the field.
Well, bottom line is the Steelers scored a lot of points. Another guy who's emerging, and he has, I think over the course of his time here, is Diontae Johnson. He was a big playmaker in that game, and I'm sure he was motivated because last week he had that costly fumble in overtime. He's been working on that kind of stuff, but boy, he was really good in the game against the Chargers.
Yeah, and I think when you look at the Steelers wide receivers core as a group, all of them, each of them have their unique skill set. But what Diontae Johnson has, in my opinion, is he is the one guy who's uniquely capable of winning one-on-one matchups against the opposing cornerback by himself without any help from schemes or bunch formations or any of those rub routes or any of that stuff. I think that's why a lot of times you will see a bunch to one side, Diontae Johnson alone on the other side, because he can come off the ball, beat that corner with moves or whatever by himself, and that's a very valuable skill set for a guy who wants to be a quality wide receiver in the NFL.
He certainly does, and he's taking steps in that direction. And the Steelers now are going to have to use him, Claypool, everyone else, because this game coming up against Cincinnati is going to be a good test for them for sure. They won the first game here in Pittsburgh. These games ultimately will decide who wins the AFC North, as everyone is so close together and so tightly bunched. Can you figure out the NFL? I try every week and I can't figure it out.
Yeah, the only thing that I have figured out is as soon as you think you've figured it out, you haven't.
No, and we see reminders of that every single week, like last
every
week.
Single week.
I mean,
well, Buffalo.
How about Tennessee?
Yes.
I mean, at home to the Texans.
Houston. Yeah, wow.
It happens. We're going to take a break, come back, and we'll talk about the Cincinnati Bengals, their offense, and why it's difficult to control it. But the Steelers, that's their assignment this week. You'll see the game on KDK. We're back with more right here on the Mike Tomlin Press Conference Show.
Touchdown catch at the end there. Did you shift inside to the slot?
No, I was at corner. Obviously, we had a call on. I'm not going to get into specifics of the call. And he just didn't execute the call. So, kind of just at that, obviously in a critical point of the game, we got to be all on the same page and can't have any miscommunications. And, we just didn't get done. So, yeah.
How much do you feel like the Chargers were able to kind of exploit you guys in the secondary, knowing just the guys that you were down with, Mika and Joe?
That's their identity as it is. Not to say they were just exploiting our secondary. We know what type of offense the Chargers are, as far as moving the ball around. Obviously, they got explosive guys on the perimeter as well in the backfield. Obviously our job is to not only limit that, but obviously be in the right positions and make plays on the ball and do our job as a defense. We just got to keep standing up in those moments and not blinking. Coming down the stretch, obviously you play a full 60 minutes, and the first snap can't be the last. So the communication's got to be right across the board. The energy, the way we play, the way we fly around. All those things got to be
top notch for us to continue to keep moving in the right direction. We want to as a unit and as a team.
How long did that seem like that ball that was tipped stayed in the air for you?
It was in the air, but it was either me or me. I was going to get it. Kind of just seizing the opportunity. Our D-line did a great job of getting our hands up. Got them in a situation, obviously, where they had to throw the ball. So great anticipation for those guys up front to get some rush and get their hands up. And that's just rush and coverage just working together.
Towel is twirling, and this atmosphere is very special. It always is for a Steelers game at Heinz Field.
In their run game, and protect not only Joe's game, which needs no endorsement from me. He and they have been really consistent and good, not only this year but for a number of years. But in our current state and some of the things that we've given up via the run in recent weeks, albeit quarterback scramble or what have you, it is deserving of attention for us. And so we got to work to formulate a good plan to position our people to not allow him to control the game.
And that's a big part of this, controlling the game on the ground. The Steelers have given up a lot of yards on the ground recently, and that's one of the things they have to stop. We saw the second half of the Seattle game. We saw the Detroit game, and they have a pretty good run game, and they took advantage of it. What do they have to do to stop Joe Mixon?
Well, I mean, what we've seen from the Steelers' run defense, I think, over the course of the season is early they had troubles tackling. Then they fixed it. And the key there was, to me, going to Cleveland, the #1 rushing team in the NFL, and the Steelers shut that down. Then tackling became an issue again. And that's disappointing to me because usually, when you have a problem and you get it fixed and you execute it against a top opponent, then you feel pretty comfortable that guys have it and, okay, now we can turn our attentions to fixing something else. But that hasn't proven to be the case. Now, with Joe Mixon, particularly this Sunday, Bob, let me say this. The defense needs to pick it up against the Cincinnati running attack, but the offense can help too. Mm-hmm. If you score some points early and you keep scoring, then you kind of maybe convince the Bengals that they have to do some things to score too, and they can't try to control the game just with their running attack as they would if it's a close score, low-scoring kind of game. So, yeah, if Ben Roethlisberger and the offense can do some of the things they did against the Chargers early in Cincinnati, maybe Joe Mixon becomes less of a factor that way.
Long drives, score points, get touchdowns, not field goals. That makes a big difference in this game, and it's a big one coming up on Sunday. It's going to wrap it up for us. For Bob Labriola, I'm Bob Pompiani, and for all of us here at Steelers TV and KDKA TV, we thank you for joining us. We got the 84 Lumber Mike Tomlin Show Saturday night, 11:35. The game on Sunday will start with 11:30 a.m. pregame coverage. Have a good day, everyone. We'll see you then.